Welcome to the Horseshoe Hustle. Thank you for joining me today. And today we're going to be going over the Colts secondary. Keep it very simple. A lot of people are really hyping up this Colts secondary, a lot of Colts fans, and I see why. There's a lot more talent there than there was last year. You look at last year's Colts secondary, and that secondary was the worst in the league. It wasn't even close. On top of that, there were injuries. We practically had practice squad guys starting in the secondary for the most part. I like Jalen Jones. I liked David Long Jr. I liked a couple of things that we had going on in that secondary, but these guys aren't starters. Those guys that were starting were straight from the practice squad starting. When these guys would remain on practice squads, remain towards the bottom of the depth chart, mainly as special teams guys, if that, and barely coming in only when needed, these guys were starting. And that was a major issue. So Chris Ballard goes ahead and he pretty much fixed it, and the Colts secondary is much better now. And compared to what it was last year, it is a miles and miles ahead better than what it was. It was nice to see Chris Ballard go out, splurge, and get this Colts defense up to par. I'm not saying this is going to be a top 10 defense. I'm not saying it's going to be a top 5 defense. I'm saying that this defense is going to be much better, and they're definitely going to be capable of getting stops when needed, and they're going to be capable of being a good defense. I don't know about great. They look great on paper, but that's the thing. Teams can always look great on paper. Things can always look great on paper, but the moment you get to playing, sometimes it's never as good as it looks on paper. Sometimes it looks, like I said, it looks great on paper, but it doesn't always translate to the field. And it being the first year, new defensive coordinator Lou, and the pieces that we picked up are pretty significant. Now, Charvarious Ward is a very good cornerback. I think he's very versatile. He could play man. He could play zone. He could do whatever you need him to do. He could play in the slot. He could play in the outside. He's very versatile. He can do a little bit of everything, and I like that. On top of that, he's very good. Of course, he is great on the outside. That's where he's best. Very versatile. Like I said, pretty balanced player. Good playmaker. Can get you some good interceptions, can follow a number one receiver around on the other team. And that's good because we haven't had that since that 1 year with Xavier Rhodes, where Xavier Rhodes was pretty much a top 10 corner for us. That was we haven't had anything like that since then. We haven't really had someone that we could look to on a weekly basis, on a couple years basis, because Xavier Rhodes was really good that 1 year. After that, wasn't too much there. And before that, maybe you could say it was Vontae Davis. That just goes to show you how little success there has been in getting cornerback help and, the passing defense, side of things. We've had good corners, like Pierre Desir was good, but other than that, we've really struggled to get really good cornerback play. We haven't had top end play on the boundary in a long time, and someone that's going to be here a couple of years on top of that. Excuse me while my alarm goes off. Sorry about that. But so let's look at the rest of the guys. Charvarious Ward, awesome. He's going to be that number one guy, and he's still in his prime. He's 29, so he is going to hit 30 pretty soon here. But he's on a 3-year contract, and I expect him to play at a very high level all 3 of those years, which is very nice. Other cornerbacks. Let's look at these other cornerbacks. You have Jalen Jones, who I believe is going to be cornerback 2. He is going to compete with Juju Brents, if you want to call him that. I'm going to call him Julius Brents. There's my phone going off again. I just have to start putting my phone in do not disturb when I do videos. But Jalen Jones is a fun cornerback too. I don't even know if he should be a cornerback too. Julius Brents probably shouldn't even be a starter on the boundary. Probably shouldn't be a starter anywhere, to be honest with you. Maybe a 4 or 5, like Julius Brents, or like Jalen Jones. But Jalen Jones at least has a high ceiling. I think he has a very high ceiling from what we've seen last year. He's still a young player. Sometimes it takes a little while, and cornerbacks continue to get better year after year, and they take a little while. I think Jalen Jones has shown a heck of a lot more than Julius Brents. And you could say, yeah, well, Julius Brents has been hurt. Well, tough luck, kid. That's just the NFL. If someone else is playing. And I really like Jalen Jones's play style. It is risky. It's kind of like the Diggs that plays. I don't know. I think it's Trayvon Diggs that plays for the Cowboys. No, I'm completely blanking on his name. The really really aggressive cornerback. It's either he, gets all these interceptions, a lot of big pat downs. He makes a lot of big plays, but the issue is he also lets up a lot of yards, and that's what Jalen Jones does. Jalen Jones puts his body on the line. He goes out. He's watched a lot of passes. He had a lot of PBUs last year. Very good on that end. A couple of interceptions. Like, he has some really nice plays in him. So that's why I think he is a good cornerback, too. Never a cornerback one because of the way he plays. I don't want that being my cornerback one. But on top of that, no, he's just not a cornerback one type of cornerback. He is a really solid cornerback two. I think he is a good cornerback too. Honestly, I know I was just saying maybe he shouldn't even be starting on the boundary, but he's definitely better than Julius Brents or Juju Brents, whatever you want to refer to him as. So the boundary is looking okay. We have two pretty different players on the boundary there, and on top of that, like I mentioned earlier, with Lou, he's going to put them where they think he should be. They're going to be versatile. And Lou does a very good job of putting every single player who is playing for him in the best possible chance to succeed. They put them in the best place for the defense, the best place for the player, and ultimately it just helps the rest of the defense out. Now the slot, Kenny Moore, I don't need to get into it with Kenny Moore too much. He can be inconsistent at times. He is a bit smaller as well, so that's worth mentioning. So it does make it really difficult to be very consistent, especially when you just go up against bigger and faster guys that could just beat you to the catch point, or wherever they're going. Kenny Moore is a great slot, though. He's a great slot cornerback. He is one of the better ones in the league. Is he the best? Probably not. No, I wouldn't say so. I say the kid from Detroit probably is. I would take him over Kenny Moore. I'm blanking on his name. I think it's Brian Branch. Kind of a safety, kind of a cornerback. He does a little bit of both, and he's very good at both. Brian Branch, I believe that is who I'm thinking of. I believe that he is a slot for Detroit as well, and I really like him. I think he's a little bit better than Kenny. But point being made, Kenny Moore is one of the better cornerbacks in the NFL. He's a very good slot. So the starters are really good, and then when you get into the depth, maybe there's a little of a discrepancy in the depth, and I kind of just lost it. I had the depth chart here. Hold on one moment. Of course, figures, no. It's fine. I'll just keep going. But we do have Julius Brents. I'll bring the Julius Brents up while I'm talking here. So Julius Brents has had a lot of injury issues, hasn't really had the opportunity to grow and get better. Even in camp, when he's been, healthy, not much. I mean, he hasn't really made much noise. And you know what they say, if you're a cornerback and you're not hearing much of them, they're probably doing good, not great. Not horrible, because if you're hearing things, it's for a cornerback, usually if you're hearing things, it's bad or it's really, really good. But majority of the time with corners, it's kind of just bad. When you actually hear things about them. So let's look at this Colts depth chart really quick. I know we have Dabo. I know I mentioned some of the other guys. I just want to get an exact gauge. I don't want to forget anybody, like I've done many times. So like I said, we're just going through the cornerback room right now. We haven't even touched the safeties yet, but the cornerback room, I mean, you have Samuel Womack. I don't think he is too bad of a depth piece. So maybe. And then you have Corey Ballantyne. We just signed him. He is going to be the backup nickelback. Alex Johnson. I do like David Long Jr. and Marcel Dabo. Dabo is more of a safety, but I feel like he could do both. He did both last year. I mean, it was what it was. We had to do what we had to do. So he has some experience there, but he's not very good, actually. David Long Jr., I think he has some potential. Samuel Womack, I think there's a lot of potential, but they're also very young, and they have the potential to go either way. Are they going to be good, or are they going to be really, really bad? Or are they just going to be a good depth piece? A guy you want in there just subbing in when you have an injury, something going on, while you figure something out, or just someone you're putting in there, while someone's hurt for a little while. There's a lot of different things that go into all of it, and who makes it, why they are where they are. And Juju Brents, he's been hurt too much. That's been the problem with Julius Brents. And I'm not too crazy of his play, to be honest with you. I think he's been a bit underwhelming. He's drafted pretty high in the second round, and to be honest with you, even when he's been on the field, he's had some good plays, but I do think he is a bit underwhelming. So I think Jalen Jones will beat him out for cornerback too, which is not bad. Like I already talked about Jalen Jones. there's the good, there's the bad. You get out everything, but Jalen Jones really is, on both ends there. You don't know what you're gonna get. I mean, you do know what you're gonna get. He's very, very aggressive. He's gonna make big plays, but he's also gonna let big plays happen. So I don't really like that. But Lou is going to make the determination. I think whatever Lou says, I'm going to get behind him because I like Lou. I think he calls a really strong defense, especially versus some of the better. He's really good at game planning. He's really good at getting these guys in the right positions. So I think that's going to help these young guys as well, having a guy like Lou Anarumo. And then let's look at the safeties. I mean, the safety room isn't too bad. The two starters, I do like the starters. I don't think Cameron Bynum was as good as a signing as everyone was saying. I mean, like I said earlier, I mean, this secondary was so bad last year that, when you go ahead and make two big signings and put, I'm not saying Cameron Bynum is not good. He is a very good safety. He's a top safety in the league. He got paid that for a reason. He is very good. But I don't think he's as good as everyone's saying. I would have rather Javon Holland. If you ask me, I would have preferred Javon Holland. I think I think he could be as versatile or more versatile. And I feel like that would have been better for Lou's system, but it is what it is. Cameron Bynum is a really good option. I think Javon Holland got paid around the same, but that's okay. It is what it is. Cameron Bynum, I'm not downplaying and saying he's not a good signing or, he's not good. Cameron Bynum is very good. He's a top safety, but I don't think he is, everyone that everything that some Colts fans are hyping him up to be. It is miles ahead better of what we had. He's much better than Julian Blackmon. Do we bring Julian Blackmon back? I don't know. I don't think so. Maybe after the draft. I think we're going to wait until after the draft to see how the draft goes, if he's not signed by then, of course. But you look at the safety room. We just talked about Cameron Bynum. I like him. He's a very good safety. He brings really good energy to the room, which is, I think the room is really missing that. And Charvarious Ward brings that energy to the room as well. And both of these signings bring that. Cameron Bynum and Charvarious Ward have incredible character, both really high in character, and they bring a lot of energy. Cameron Bynum, all the dances and stuff like that. That him and Kenny Moore are going to come up with some really good celebrations. That's exciting. But then you have Nick Cross on the other side. I like Nick Cross. I think he's all right. I think he's a good tackler. I mean, he had a lot of tackles last year. That just goes to show how bad the front end was. So that's gonna have to clean it. That's gonna have to be cleaned up before anything else gets better. To be honest with you, that's just how it goes. If you can't stop the running, if you're struggling to get the running back or whoever, or even the receiver or whoever is catching the ball, if you're struggling to tackle, it's not good, and it's gonna hurt everything else. And if the run game, you can't tackle in the run game, byproduct of that, the rest of the defense is just gonna struggle. And the guys, you don't want guys like Nick Cross getting all those tackles, too many tackles, because it just means not good tackling. Linebackers are struggling. That's Zaire Franklin. He's still fine, but we need to find someone else on the other side of him. He does have a lot of mouth, but I mean, every player does sometimes. Most players do. It is what it is. I forgive him. Things happen. He came out and he apologized. Or I'm just going to take it at face value. It's all you can do. You could go in and dig into it, which some situations definitely garner that, and that's just what you do sometimes, like we did with Anthony Richardson. But Anthony Richardson deserved every ounce of, I'm not going to say slander, but every ounce of flack that he had his way, that he had coming his way. Not going to get into that. I've gotten into that way too much, beating a dead horse with that. But Nick Cross, he's a good option. I like Cross. I think he's a good safety. He's nothing special, but we're going to have to see what he's going to do this year coming up, what he's going to do. He's going to get better, he's going to get worse, because he didn't get a lot of playing time his first couple of years. Maybe Lou will get the best out of him, and I hope so. Daniel Scott, yeah, I think this has been the guy that has been hurt the first 2 years, so if he could come in and he could play, I think Daniel Scott can take that spot from Nick Cross possibly. Nick Cross does have the experience, and he has had a lot of tackles last year. Some really good things from Nick Cross. He played the full year last year, but we'll see. And, of course, Cam Bynum, Rodney Thomas is a good backup safety, is a good third safety, not someone that you want starting. He had some good moments. He was good 1 year. He wasn't even really good. He was inconsistent. He's just not a starting safety. So overall, Marcel Dabo, he stepped in. He was not great last year, but if you look at this roster, if you look at this team, well, the secondary mainly I'm talking about, it's good. Don't get me wrong. It is a good secondary. I think it's a little better than middle of the road, maybe top 12. I'd say maybe top 12, top 16, but it's not insane. It's not top 5. It's not top 7. I don't think it's top 10. Maybe top 12. But let's not go crazy just because we made a couple of good signings and it looks great on paper. Sure, that's our job. That's podcasters' jobs. That's people who love football and go in and talk about how it looks on paper and say that's going to translate. And most of it probably will, because these are experienced players. It's not like we're signing them for potential. We know what we're getting. So, and it could be even better in Lou's system, but don't forget, Cameron Bynum was in a really tough system. Both players were in systems and teams that know how to win. The Vikings won 14 games last year. Okay, and Charvarious Ward, I mean, he's been to a Super Bowl. He's played in the Super Bowl. He's played plenty of playoff games. So these players know what it's like to be part of a winning culture. They know what it's like to be in a winning locker room. That's important. I think these guys need that because we haven't really won much. I mean, we've been very mediocre, haven't made the playoffs. We've won games, but games of any magnitude, I'd say no. So that's what these guys are going to bring in. They're going to bring in a new energy. They're going to bring in some kind of energy that these guys haven't seen before. And you can say Kenny Moore has been here for a while, but I mean, the success that the Vikings had, that you can say what you want. Were they as good as as what they were as a record word? Well, they won a lot of games. They had a dominant season in the record. In the book. So you have to look at it like that. And then Charvarious Ward, like I said, Super Bowl. And they're both coming from really tough systems to play on top of it. I mean, look at Brian Flores' system. You have to be really smart. It's really tough to play in that system. And, I think Lou's system is going to be, probably has to be one of the more difficult ones too, because of how much he plays. He didn't just stick to one. It's not just like learning one or this or that and get used to one. It's no, you got to really know all of them, as much as you possibly can. But usually, with Gus Bradley or even Matt Eberflus, they were more so stuck to their specialty, what they liked most and what they did most. Cover 2 for Eberflus, and then a lot of cover 3 for Gus Bradley. And they never really, neither of them really blitzed or were aggressive. But Lou's a little different. He's going to call a lot of man coverage. He's aggressive. He is going to call a lot of zone. He's going to call a little bit of everything. He formulates his game plan on what he's going to call depending on what he's going up against. It's not predetermined like it is with Gus Bradley or Eberflus, even though the game plan does change and, they do change in the way they fight things, but it's completely different with Lou. He's very open-minded. I like that. We need that. Haven't had that in a while in the defensive room. So, yeah, I mean, this secondary is not top 10. They are not top 5. I would say maybe they're borderline top 12, definitely top 15 or 16. They aren't great until they prove it. You know what I mean? And I get it. They were paid a lot of money. And they were very good where they're coming from. Charvarious Ward, we know what he is. He's 29. He's going to be who he is. He's going to be very good. Cameron Bynum, he's a little younger, but we know who he is. We know who these guys are. But don't forget, this is a new system. Lou Anarumo, he's new. And the other players are new to it. So it's not like, it takes longer. It takes a little while to learn a system. It's not right away. The first couple weeks, it might be slow. The defense might not look as good. I do expect the defense to get better as the season goes on. I don't expect them to be great right away, and I don't really, not too sure if the secondary is great. Like I said, we'll see. We have to see on the field before we really say if this is top 5 or top 10. I think a top 10 or top 5 secondary, is top 10 or top 5. You can't put them in top 10 or top 5 if they haven't proven it yet. And they have to prove it to me first before I say that. But just looking on paper, yeah, you probably could put them top 10. On paper. Just on paper. But you have to take into account everything else going on. It's not just about what's going on the paper. We see all the time. Some teams look great on paper. Some position groups look great on paper when the season hits. Very disappointing. It's not what people thought it was going to be. So we will see. I will say top 15. No, I'm not really in the middle ground of 12 and 16, but I'll say top 15 in general. So we'll see, guys. I want to hear what you guys think. Thank you for coming in and listening to me in the Horseshoe Hustle today. This is one of many segments on the JDW Sports Network. We have Just Arrival. We have quite a few segments going on here. We did the March Madness, wondering how your guys' March Madness has been going. But hey, you guys let me know how your brackets are doing if you did any brackets. But you guys let me know. All right. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. And I'll catch you guys later.